I'm Lenn Woolston. I am a writer, blogger, and nerd, and today I have a special tea talk all about dealing with criticism. We are on the last day of May 2019, which means that we are just getting so close to the official start of summer. So because summer is fastly approaching, I'm going to instead do an iced tea today that I'll be walking you through. So I'm going to go whip that up right now and join you so we could talk about all about how to deal with criticism. This is so good. I highly recommend this. I love this tea in iced form because all of the kind of natural sweetness through the tea comes through and you don't even have to add anything to it, and it's so wonderful as a summer drink. Now that we have our drinks in hand or nearby us, let's talk about dealing with criticism. As a writer, as a creative person, as anybody that is going to be creating something and asking for input from other people, you're gonna have to deal with criticism. There are people who are going to have their own opinion about your work and they're going to share it with you. Now, some of this is because you've asked them to, and some of it you haven't really asked them. They just are providing it to you. And it can be very overwhelming as a writer. I know that it is very overwhelming and it's very just anxiety inducing knowing when somebody is reading my work because I don't know how they are going to read it themselves. I don't know what lens they're looking at when it comes to reading any of my stories. And so I can say that dealing with criticism is one of the things that I had to really learn and apply to make my writing better, and that's what I'm here to help you with. Number one is to breathe. Now, I know it is very hard. Like I was saying, when you are actually asking somebody to review your work, whether it's a loved one or a critique partner or a beta reader, knowing that somebody else is reading your work is very, very hard to know that somebody else is looking at your work. But it all is part of the process. You need that input from other people because it's going to kind of give you the feedback you need to make your story even better. And it's very much like how Andy Weir, the author of The Martian, says that you want an audience. If you didn't, you wouldn't be a writer. The biggest motivation to write is the knowledge that someone will read it. And even knowing that as a writer you do want input, it still is really hard. So definitely take a breather, literally and figuratively, because I know it's hard, but just breathe and just know that they are giving you the feedback to make your writing better. Number 2 is to allow for a cool down. Remember how I showed you making my iced tea and how we had to wait and wait and wait until the tea had finally cooled down enough so that we can get it to an iced state. That's kind of what you need to do as a writer. You need to allow yourself that when you get that initial feedback and you've taken that breather and you've opened up that email and looked at all of their notes, or you've talked with them in person, you need to allow for a cool down. Because what's going to happen is people are going to give you all of their opinions about your writing, and you will ultimately want to just be defensive. It's your book, baby. You want to defend why you chose writing it this way and the words that you chose. And you can't kill all your darlings. You're going to need to cool down. If you act initially, and you're going to just have to really go with me here, that having that cool down will make it so that you don't just lash out in anger at the person that's giving you the criticism. You're gonna need to take a breather. And so sometimes that for me means that I will read whatever the comments are and then literally just walk away from my desk, because I need to have that cool down. I need to let all of those words sink in, and I need to have just an understanding of, okay, that's what the feedback is, and we'll deal with it in a minute. The third thing to do is to determine if it is constructive versus destructive. So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, constructive criticism is an attempt to give you feedback that with the best intention of making your work better. So the person that is giving this opinion, they have your best interest in mind. Now, it may sound like they're trying to just give you this feedback and you get overwhelmed and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I could do this. But again, the constructive part of it is kind of like how that compliment sandwich is, that we know that there's a compliment, something that they liked, something that you can improve on, and then another compliment. That is a very basic form of constructive criticism, where it's not just pointing out all the bad, but also including a lot of the good. And any of the feedback that is constructive, it's again trying to make it so that you will improve on it by offering suggestions on what they think would make this story better. Whereas destructive is saying, you did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, didn't like this, didn't like that, without anything as a basis of saying what they did enjoy about it. And it's really to just put you down kind of in so many words that they either didn't like your work or they didn't like you in a person, and they don't have your best interest in mind. So after you've determined if it is constructive or if it's destructive, then the fourth thing you need to do is consider the source. This goes back to what I was talking about, how you need to make sure that when you're receiving constructive criticism, it is somebody who has your best intentions in mind. When you have a source that is somebody who is just throwing up, like a negative review, for example, and they are just saying that they didn't like it or anything and not including anything that they liked, that can really feel like it's just destructive. And you know that, okay, that is one reader. Okay, so have that in mind. That is one reader. Now, where you really want to focus on is if you are at a point where you have given your work to either your loved ones, your critique partners, and your beta readers, there's always a rule of 3. You want to make sure that you're giving it to at least 3 people to kind of see collectively if there's something that is coming as a basis of them giving that constructive criticism that may have either the same comments or a similar theme or similar suggestions, to where you're kind of seeing, okay, everybody that I've given it to is, the majority of them are saying this one thing. So I might need to kind of consider that that might be valid. Whereas if you have somebody who is just slipping in your DMs and telling you that you're doing this wrong with your work or as a person or whatever, consider the source. It's a troll. Disregard that one. The fifth thing is, as a writer, you need to think objective versus subjective. So again, after you've had your cool down period and letting those feedback comments kind of just linger and marinate on and everything, you need to, as a writer, take all of that feedback and to think objectively. This is where you pull out all of those kind of emotional attachments to your work and read through all of their comments again and see if it makes sense. If it makes sense to do what they're saying, if it makes sense to you, what you originally did, so that you can determine, okay, if I was just looking at it and it wasn't me who wrote this and I was giving my opinion, what would I say about this work? By doing that, you kind of are able to step aside from the closeness that a lot of us writers have to our work, and you kind of look back and see, okay, well, how would a reader perceive this message in this story? Is it something that you need to work on, like how you may be getting that collective info from all of the people who are giving you feedback, or is it something where you're just like, you know what, this is how I imagine this story and this is what I'm sticking with? The sixth and final thing to do when it comes to handling criticism is to remember it is your story. You are the one that finally puts together all of the components to the story, and you determine what is best. Now, you can get all this feedback. You can send it to 3, you can send it to 20, you can send it to 1,000,000 people, and you're going to get so many different opinions, but ultimately you are the one that's going to make the decision on how the story turns out. So that's something that you have to remember, that yes, there may be people who are saying that you need to do it this way, but deep down in your heart, you know the story better than anybody. And if they are saying that that work needs this improvement and you don't agree, you have the determination and the willpower to say, no, this is what I think is best for the story. That even means if you have an agent or editor who is suggesting changes that you do not think would suit your story well. So there you have it. Those are my 6 different ways that I deal with criticism, and I want to know, how do you deal with criticism? Either constructive or destructive? Do you have certain people that you absolutely trust their opinion on? Tell me in the comment section down below, because I would love to know how you deal with criticism. Thank you guys so much for kind of tuning in to my channel. Once again, if this is your first time here, thanks so much for checking me out. Definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos that I post on Fridays. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and happy summer to everybody, as an early happy summer. And I will catch you guys in the next video. So until next video, bye!